Hello, this is the video commentary for multiplayer level design. I'm going to be going over my TF2 level and then I'll talk about the design process. So the level is a relatively small scale one. It's quite circular in nature. You can essentially think of it as a ring with the capture point in the middle and then little bits on the sides. This was intentional. It's to keep it matches on this level feeling very sort of scrappy and fast-paced. Getting back to action is quick, and the catch point is constantly changing who's in control of it, which makes for very interesting matches. The ring-like structure is essentially to keep players from just kind of getting shot at constantly with no way of getting away. For instance, say I'm here and I'm getting attacked by a pyro or something, I'm trying to capture the catch point, and a heavy or whoever's shooting at me. Instead of just getting shot at, I can run around very quickly behind them and then start shooting them from behind. I can sort of sneak up on them. That's the main reason as to why it's designed the way that it is. So what was the design process with this? Originally I drew up a bunch of different sort of mock-ups for what I could do for my level, and ultimately stuck with the one that I have on screen right now, iterated it a little bit. Mainly just went with it because it was the most unique one, sort of shape-wise, right? The others were quite football field-esque. So I blocked it out and did the very first playtest, and people liked it. Generally, it was most of the things that I thought were positives were. It was symmetrical, right, and all that. However, there were some negatives, mainly stuff like, it was too dark, or spawn doors weren't opening fast enough. Relatively easy stuff to fix. The main two issues that came up were, one, the level size, and two, spawn camping. Level size was somewhat contentious, as some people actually quite like the size of it, and as I said before, like the sort of scrappy, sort of fast-paced nature that Matches on It could have got with the size of the level being as small as it was. But others felt it was too small. I would later on, in one of my later surveys for another playtest, ask if the size was a problem, basically say, is the size good? And the overwhelming majority was, yes, no, it's good enough, it's a good size, so I ultimately kept it. But as for spawn camping, essentially what was going on is players could stand here, or in one of these corners, and since the spawns are there and there, before these walls were in it, and the spawns were a bit more forward, it meant that you could essentially just snipe players as they were coming out of the spawn doors, which is not good. That's why these walls were put up, essentially just to prevent that, right? It means that you can't just shoot at players from across the map. So I fixed that issue, and then I did another playtest. A big thing that was mentioned is that spawn camping was still very much an issue. So I had to find other ways of fixing that. One problem that was brought up, and I thought I can fix that, was the fact there is only one door. You can see there still is, but I did go and change that at one point. I had it so that if you were coming out of the spawn door here, there would be another two doors you could come out of, left and right. You could go out of one or the other, and that made things a bit different. Players weren't just coming out of the one same big door, and by them being on the left and right, it meant that if you're standing all the way over here and you are shooting, there's not a clear massive target to fire at, being a big door. However, I would end up changing this later on. Essentially, problem came about that both doors were essentially still going the same direction, right? If you're coming out here, you're still going generally here. I did have the idea of having spawn doors, or doors within the spawn, that would go out into these sections over here, to give more sort of purpose to these. This wall was kind of further back originally. But I ultimately realized that if I did that, the corridors that would lead from spawn to there would be far too long, and players would never use them, so ultimately got rid of it. This big wall was instead kept here so that there was still that problem of just players shooting at the big target wasn't a thing anymore. Though there is obviously still the one door, and if I were to go back and do this again, I probably would change this so that, I'd design it from the get-go to have it be, right, there's multiple ways going out of spawn rather than just the one. But I think this is still a decent enough workaround for it. The same reason why this is block here, and why these walls are kind of inwards. These happen later on as well. It was basically, same reason, make it hard to just shoot at the doors as they are, or shoot at the players, as they come out of the doors, I should say. I also got the criticism from that second playtest that these sections were too big. These were originally massive rings, not too dissimilar from the ones with the spawns. They're essentially just big old arenas that no one was really using because players are just kind of running through them, right? No one's going to spend all that time in a big arena when all the action is happening down there. So these were changed to corridors instead, with these platforms kept in, as I felt they were good landmarks. And it does the job that I want better this way, where you can just ring around it, as I wanted to originally. So with that being said, I then went and took in another piece of feedback I got from that second playtest, which was these walls. These walls were originally the same as those, and along with it being the same, it was suggested that it might be good to have other ways of getting to the capture point from spawn. So the idea of making some of the walls a bit different, or having them be not walls but like ways to get into spawn from, could be, or get to the control point, from, would be a good idea. However, I realized if I just had, say, an archway, it meant that, the same problem from earlier with I had put these walls into effects could still happen, right? You could just kind of effectively shoot and just shoot players as they come in. So instead, this was changed to a vantage point. There is a ramp here, players can come up, they can hide behind the cover. There was originally 2 bits of cover, with an open bit in the middle. So one there and one there. Swapped it out for one because otherwise I meant you could just shoot at players that are all the way down there. You can kind of see if I jump over it. So it's changed to this way for that. It gives snipers a good vantage point, because before snipers were a bit useless. They were good for spawn camping when that was an issue. But in terms of the kind of play that we want, they were a bit useless. So giving them vantage points like this worked. And it means they weren't too sort of overpowered, because they are very open here. You could be sniping up here as a sniper, but then someone from back here could just hit you over the head while you're shooting, which, means that you're not too sort of safe, and there isn't that dominant strategy of just standing up here and firing away. From there, I went and changed. I had some more cover down here. I did another playtest, and spawn camping wasn't much of a problem, hooray, but it was mentioned that, hey, this center point is a bit too open, right? It's a bit easy to sort of shoot at people. More cover was needed. So more cover was added in terms of walls here. You can hide behind them as you are approaching. You can't just get shot at, like, oh no, there's a heavy. I can hide behind these to sort of regroup. You will notice that there aren't any on this side, or the side over there. There was originally. I took them out and replaced them with these ones, essentially just to keep things more varied. I also got the feedback that more pickups would be good to have, so I did that. More placed around, you saw some earlier, but some of the big new ones that were added were these here. Because I took out the walls here, I thought it'd be good to have small pickups, small health pickups, rather than bigger ones. Essentially, obviously the problem is that if you are sort of holding the capture point, and you need health, we can't have the player just go, oh, there's some more health, grab it, and then go back to it, because, again, dominant strategy. Makes it too easy to just hold the point. They've got to go out a bit. If they go to these ones over here, yes, okay, they can get some, but it's only a little bit. And also, there's no cover here. They're out in the open, and they're privy to getting shot from either the right or the left there, because the health level is designed. You're quite out in the open if you go for that, if you're just trying to grab a quick health pickup while capturing the central point. I also ran out the walls around this point in time. These were essentially just blocks being made to look like diagonals before, right? We just have a middle one there and then a left and a right at diagonals. This basically meant that players could just kind of hide in the shadows, in the corners, which, especially for spies, made them a bit more dominant than they really should be. So that was changed to be curved to avoid that, and also just makes them look nicer, right? I also then went and just made smaller changes from there. Reworked these corridors a little bit, essentially just making the vantage points a bit deeper and changing these platforms so they were had ramps on the sides so you could enter them, or get onto them I should say, from any angle. And then from there, outside of just altering the cover a little bit, it was just a case of texturing. I do acknowledge the texturing could definitely be better, right? It is mainly just kind of different shades of grey along with the red and blue for the spawns, but I think it does the job. And also, like, I think the shades of grey are different enough to where you can tell what's what. I don't think anything blends together too much, right? Darker grey for the outer walls, lighter grey for these, kind of middish grey for the floor. So I think it's good. I think it's good as it is. Could be better, sure, but I didn't have time to do meshing or anything crazy, so I think this is good as is. Don't know how to end this, so I will leave it there.